Hello, good morning. Welcome to the Speak Life podcast. I am your host, Cherie Casey, coming to you today, wishing you all well. I pray that everyone's health is doing well. Be careful, everyone. COVID-19 is still around. Regardless of the mask controversy, whatever you believe or don't believe, please be mindful of other people, protecting our elderly while you protect yourself. There are so many things going on right now in our community. There's the Black Lives Matter. There's so many controversies going on right now. One of the things that is being said that I just saw this posted on Facebook, and it's very disturbing. Now, yes, black on black crime does exist. The quote said, if Black Lives Matter, then why are you still killing each other? Well, as a behaviorist, a person who studies behavior, I thought about this. And it started yesterday when I had a conversation with my 13-year-old grandson. During this pandemic, he normally stays with me, but he has not been staying with me because it's summer and because he wants to stay with his uncle. So he called me up very late and he talked about family. He began to ask questions about family. And I had to end up at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night running down a family tree and family history. After I got finished with that, I felt almost embarrassed that I hadn't taken the time to explain all of those things. Then when I read this quote, it dawned on me, and I had to pull out my books, y'all. See, I was very fortunate enough when I was a young girl, my dad sent me to an all-black school in the inner city. This school had an African curriculum in Newark, New Jersey. It was called the Chad School. And for 1 year, we had teachers who were Afrocentric. Some of them actually came from Africa, and they taught an African curriculum. I learned so much about Africa, the continent. I learned so much about where our ancestors came from. There were so many things, and I was a reader back then, so I read a lot of things and I understood perfectly. Then when I went to high school, we had the privilege of having an African American teacher who taught Black history. His name was Mr. Rob, and we all adored him. That was the one class where no student failed. He taught us everything. But they cut the programs as the years went on. Then when I went to college, I had another privilege of taking another class by an African historian. And so I kept abreast even through the years. Now, mind you, what I'm about to say may be a little controversial, but nevertheless, it needs to be said. When children grow up and they don't know their history, they're already set up for failure. There's a book that I became very familiar with. I was having some issues with my grandson at school for years. It went on and on and on. I would get phone call after phone call after phone call about his behavior. Now, he wasn't throwing chairs. He wasn't cussing anybody out. He was just being rambunctious. He wasn't fighting, nothing like that. He just was not able to sit still. So I was at the school all the time, and finally, it got to be pretty bad that I had to move him, because it came to the point where I could see the cuffs on this 10-year-old boy's hand in my mind. And I started to think, what is going on here? You know, so I remember the book that I brought years ago that I studied in my class, called Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys. And it is by Jawanza Kunjufu. And in this book, Brother Jawanzu talks about, he cites the public school system as being the most flagrant institution which contributes to the destruction of African American boys. The destruction can be clearly observed during the 4th grade, when many African American boys begin to exhibit signs of intellectual retrogression. Unfortunately, most never recover, and as a result, a disproportionate number of African American students find themselves ill prepared to survive in a racist educational system. Now, he also says that many African American men grow up, this is just a paraphrase, they grow up and they don't really get the big picture. Now, there's so many things that these children grow up and they don't know about. They don't know what genocide means, which is the deliberate and systematic destruction of a racial, political, or cultural group. They don't know about that. I remember my father, when he talked about his views on abortion, he said, that's nothing but genocide. Then we talk about the relationships in the world and the history of the African American. Sidney Wilhelm, in this book, Sidney Wilhelm, he quotes Sidney Wilhelm in the book Who Needs the Negro? The ultimate destiny of the Afro-American is likely to be extermination, not assimilation. His situation is like that of European immigrant more than that of an American Indian. Black militants have not fully understood the economic basis of what they perceive, but in prophesying genocide, they have accurately grasped the end to which logic of automation lead. Ralph Emerson in New World Order writes, "We can no longer afford freedom, and so it must be replaced with control over man." Now, mind you, with that being said, all of this information that is out here, half the young children, African American descent, and I'm not just talking about teaching this to African American children, I'm talking about all children. Because we know a lot about the Mayflower and about Columbus, and we know all about the Tea Party. We know all of these things. But African American children don't know their own history, and then the white counterparts and other counterparts don't know anything about their history. So here we are. Of course, they're going to grow up thinking that the white history is superior because that's what they're being taught. That's what all of them are being taught. So I find it very interesting. If we don't know our history, we're doomed to repeat it. So when it comes to Black on Black crime, my answer to you guys that are making these statements is that if people really knew who they were, then things could go a lot smoother. Now, there's always going to be people who break the law. That's life. There's white people who break the law. There's Black people, every other race that break the law. However, if some of these African American children knew where they came from, they would be a little more concerned about their community. And you know why? Most of the time when you see these men go to jail, when they come out, a lot of them are schooled by the old timers in there about the history of the Black man. Sounds interesting, huh? So I say that to say that before you make those statements, you need to understand. One of the things, working as a social worker, I do what's called an assessment, a psychosocial assessment. And one of the things that I have to do is ask the patient their history. Because it's only through learning their history that we can all, as a treatment team, understand how that person needs to be treated. The analogy is, if you don't know how to treat a person, then they're not going to be treated. So then you're going to have children growing up in ignorance, not knowing who they are, not knowing where they come from, and they'll get caught up in a cycle and a system that tells them they're not worth anything because they don't know who they are. I'm sorry if this offends you, but I'm not really sorry because this is the analogy. We need to make sure as parents, as grandparents, we are instilling in our children their history. We need to instill in them their history, because if we don't instill in them their history, then what's going to happen is they're going to end up on a never-ending cycle, and genocide will be the ultimate. Will be the ultimate. Now, when I bought this book, I actually went through this book, Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys. I went through some parts of this book with my grandson because I needed him to understand that this is real, this is serious. And it's more than just teaching your kid about how to conduct themselves in front of the police. It's teaching them the history. It's teaching them why this has to be done. It's teaching them about Jim Crow. It's teaching them about the civil rights movement. It's teaching them about all the things that we learned. I grew up in the 60s. I was in the city of Newark, New Jersey, when the riots went down, when Dr. King died. I was alive. I was there. I saw it for myself. I saw the pride when streets started being named after leaders. I saw Adam Clayton Powell. I saw all of these people, Jesse Jackson, all of these people, these leaders that we had to look up to. I saw them on television, not in person, but I saw them. And there was such a difference in the pride and such a difference in the strides that were made to get us to where we are now. Somewhere the ball got dropped. We allowed our history to be lost. We allowed people to understand that we no longer are important. Our history is no longer important. And that's not true. And that's why things like Juneteenth shock people. What's Juneteenth? Christmas Addicts Day. What's that? People don't understand. And then we argue with our African brothers and sisters. Oh, they think they're better than us and this and that. There's a different feeling there. It is a different feeling. Do I think they believe they're better than us? No. I believe we just don't know how to sit down and deal with each other. That's what I believe, because I have some very good African friends. So that's just my take on the situation. I understand if someone might be controversial in this issue, but we need to teach our kids our history along with other kids. Sit down, have a Black History party. Buy the trivia games. There's a lot of trivia games out there. Invite people over, have a trivia game. I believe, especially at this age that Jawanza is talking about, the 4th grade, we need to educate these kids. Educate them now so they won't have to go to prison to read and learn all of these things. This is really a concern of mine because I have 3 sons and 1 grandson at the moment. And everybody is on edge and everybody says yes because I have a Black son. Because I have a Black son, and my grandson, by the way, is biracial. However, and my granddaughter is Mexican. However, we all know you can say mulatto, you can say mixed, you can say biracial all you want. The bottom line is they are identified as Black. It was the same thing back on the plantation. They still, although their rules may have been a little slacked, they were still identified as colored. So I'm not trying to be on a soapbox. I'm not trying to be racist. I'm just saying we need to teach our kids their history. We need to, and by our kids, I mean all kids. because this is the key to everyone getting along with each other. Everyone care. And you know what? Most of the kids do get along. It's just that in this era and in this heat of situation right now, people, so much hatred has been spewed out from the top to the bottom that people are just saying. I believe some of the people don't even know what they're saying. They probably had neighbors next door that they've been to through all their life and got along with, and now all of a sudden they're enemies. These people haven't been in a vacuum. They've had to be around some African American people, so I'm not buying it. They just all of a sudden went plumb crazy. Because see, when they come at you and you don't know what to say, you know, we have history. We did not come here on our own. We're not immigrants. We didn't come here on our own. We didn't choose to come here. We came on a boat, but it wasn't a luxury boat. We came laying down in feces and with dead bodies on top of us. We came with our families all split up. Oh, we have a history, but we had one even before we got on the boat. So with that being said, I would like everyone to keep in mind, buy your kid a history book. Buy them something about Black history. You know, buy them something that they could read about slavery so that they can learn something. They have to learn. If they don't learn in this season, it's going to be more difficult for them. Because guess what? This ain't going away no time soon. Just like the pandemic. We have a double pandemic going on right now. So with that being said, I'm going to get off my soapbox. My name is S.A. Casey. I am your host of the Speak Life podcast. I pray that all is well with you. And I hope that everyone keeps loving their hearts and keep moving and is able to just live the good life that God has called us to live, love each other, and keep hate out of our lives. And just remember who you are. Whatever color you are, remember who you are. And everybody has a history, and let's just respect one another and love and care for one another. God bless you. You have a blessed day.